Assalamu alaikum. This is Amina with New Wave Global. Today, the guest I have with me is a trailblazer. She is no stranger to shattering the glass ceiling. She has a lot of accomplishments to her name, but the most recent one is that she is the first Asian Muslim woman mayor of Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I have with me Fozia Janjua. Thank you, Fozia, for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I know it's a mouthful to say when people are introducing me. It's a lot to say, but
But it's all true. Those are your list of
yeah.
accomplishments, and that's not even the beginning of it. I know you've achieved a lot during your career, and you have a lot of community work to your name too, and I think that's
Yeah.
how it all started. But before we even delve into that, you are a first generation Pakistani, American Pakistani, correct?
Second generation. So my
Oh,
parents are immigrants, and
okay.
then I was born and raised here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And your roots are in Pakistan. Where are you from Pakistan originally?
So my mom is from Lahore,
Okay.
and then my dad is from Chickwal, which is a
Okay.
small city
Town.
near Bindi. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And but you're not from New Jersey, right? You're from San.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. I was born and raised in San Francisco, California, which I feel is such a big blessing in my life.
Okay.
To be raised in such an inclusive city like San Francisco.
Hmm.
And then I went to UC Berkeley for college, which is another school that's like known for its social justice. So I feel like I have such a great background where I was surrounded by people from all different backgrounds and ethnicities and grew up in a very diverse environment and went to school in a very diverse environment. And New Jersey was kind of very different from that.
I was going to
Um,
say that it's a big move from west to east, and it's almost like a culture change, right?
it was, I mean, the first time I felt like I was ever discriminated against was in New Jersey, in Mays Landing, New Jersey. Prior to that, I never faced any kind of prejudice or stereotypes or any of that, or made to feel uncomfortable in any situation. And it wasn't until was in New Jersey where I faced that and was like so shocking for me, where like, wow, I'm being treated this way because of the way I looked. And that was something that I never thought of growing up. And that's because I grew up in San Francisco in that environment where my outward appearance never affected the outcome of my life or how I was treated.
That's very, very interesting
It is,
that you
yeah.
are bringing that up because it's not something that we commonly associate with New Jersey. And
Mhm.
but I think but again, not all of us have that background where you're
Mhm.
brought up in a very diverse and accepting community until you come here, and then for us, it's just the way of life. But you had,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you
But
have
this
that
is Mays
perspective.
Landing.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. This
but
was
yeah,
like South Mays Landing. It wasn't like anything in Edison or anything like
right,
that, where, I mean, there
right,
are parts of New Jersey where there is a lot of diversity. There's a lot of South Asians.
right.
And we have the first highest number of South Asians in the country that are in New Jersey. So we have a big population of South Asians. So this was more Mays Landing, where it was the diversity
Wasn't
wasn't
that? Yeah,
that much.
that okay. And is that what drove you into politics? Because I know you have a lot of background in community work, in social work.
Mhm.
We'll come to that, but since we're talking about New Jersey and how it was different from your where you were brought up, is that what
Mhm.
kind of drove you into politics to be heard, to make a standing for yourself in this?
Well, that was a catalyst that made me decide to run.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated with politics. I was so excited to vote when I turned 18, was very
Okay.
involved in San Francisco politics, like the Governor Newsom. I followed his career from when he was mayor and then moved on up. So it's something I was always fascinated by and interested in. I never wanted to be involved in it myself. But I came to this position very serendipitously. My husband was invited to the governor's mansion for a holiday party, And at that holiday party, I met a lady and I was talking about things that I do and how I really love community service and social justice. And I've always advocated for marginalized members of my community. And then she turned out to be the co-chair for our Democratic committee. And she's like, I really think you should run for council. And
Okay.
I said, no, there's no way I'm doing that. I like to work behind the scenes. I don't like to put myself out there. I'm not comfortable with that. And she asked me about like 3 or 4 times. And at that time I was taking a trip and I said, look, I'm not even going to be around when you're interviewing people. So I really don't think this is going to work. And then she had the assemblywoman, Carol Murphy, call me
Oh,
and
okay.
said, I really think you should run. And this is something that I think is very common with women, where you have to ask them numerous times before they say yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said yes is probably going back to your question earlier. It's because there's no Pakistanis that have been on city council, town council in my town. So the reason why I said yes was because I was breaking that barrier. I was given this opportunity. Most people try so hard to get into politics, and there are so many barriers that prevent them from getting there. And here I was having the support of the Democratic committee in my town, and for me to say no would have been such a disservice.
Yes.
I even spoke to some friends who were involved in politics or trying to get involved in politics in local towns, and they said, look, we've been trying for years to have this opportunity, and हमें आने नहीं देते, and you're giving this opportunity, तुम ना नहीं कह सकती, ये अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से है.
Yeah.
So I said yes, and I talked to my husband because again, it's a lot of exposure. Your face is out there. When you're campaigning, people can attack you on numerous things. So I
Your
talked
life
to him.
becomes public, right? All of a
It
sudden.
does become public. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I have 4 boys. I have 4 kids. My kids were not in Mount Laurel schools. They're in private schools. So I'm like, are they going to attack me for that? Like, my kids are not in this local school. So there's all these things you think of,
Yeah.
but it was important for me to do it because now I have friends whose daughters see me in this position and they get so inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, I become a stepping stone for other people to do more than what I'm doing. When you see people in these positions, when you see somebody like me, it normalizes seeing people like me in positions of power or in elected positions. And that's what we want. Like, I'm the first Democratic female mayor, which is astounding, right? This is a town that's of 46,000 residents, and they've never had a Democratic female mayor. So there's so many barriers that I broke once I got in this position, and that's what's important. We always need that first person to do it so that
Definitely.
everybody else can follow.
Yeah. Like you said, become a stepping stone, and also the voice of the community that is
Mhm.
so, they're unheard of, like
Yes, of
women
course.
and Muslims and South Asian, all of those. These
Yeah.
are not communities that have a strong voice out there. So to become their spokesperson is also an important role that you're playing by being a mayor of Mount Laurel. So
And people are more comfortable too.
coming to
And
yeah,
coming to me. Like if there's an issue that somebody has that's South Asian, when they see me, they feel more comfortable coming to me
yeah,
because I'm one of their own.
yeah.
So
There's a camaraderie out there.
yes,
Yeah, then if
yes.
yes. So backtracking a little bit, going back to your social justice and your
Mhm.
community work, it seems like you've been involved in it all your life. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that? Yeah.
I started volunteering in middle school. I used to
Wow.
volunteer at the San Francisco Zoo, and I love animals. So I
Interesting.
would teach the public about like opossums and ferrets, and it was called the nature trail. So I'd hold the animal and educate the public about it and let them, pet the animal, whatever I was holding. So it started off from middle school, and then my nanny used to live with us, and she had a stroke, and unfortunately we had to have her in a nursing home because she had a feeding tube.
Right.
And being there and seeing the work that the people did and how much there was a need for volunteers, I would volunteer there teaching art classes. So, and then I love kids, so I would teach inner city kids. I had a tutoring program that I worked with the city and the county and would tutor inner city kids. Once I got to college, I would teach prisoners at San Quentin State prison.
Interesting.
So I would do that, and then
And
big
nobody
on.
told you not to go to the prison and
Oh, I didn't tell my dad, of
oh,
course. He
I was
had
gonna
no
say
idea I was
that.
doing. He had no idea I was doing that. Um, at that time in college, I was driving, so he didn't know. But prior to that, when I had to go places, I would have him drop me off. So he would drop me off at like protests. I would protest for PETA, just the people for the ethical treatment of animals.
Right.
I would phone bank for National Organization of Women back then. So, I mean, there was just so much that I would do. In fact, when I got into UC Berkeley, the first thing my dad said to me was, don't get arrested protesting, because I was so involved in social justice and just helping people. Like that was what I was all about, finding a way to kind of fill the gap, because not everybody's blessed with what we have.
Always
So
an advocate for underprivileged, essentially,
yeah, always.
animals or people who are important
Animals, the
or
elderly, the kids.
elderly. Yes, everybody who needed a voice. So also, it seems like once you moved here, you co-founded a community of South Jersey and Philadelphia, right? And
Mhm.
that's also um, an advocate for social justice and underprivileged. Can you tell us a little bit more about that community, how that came into being?
Yeah, so when I first got married, the plan was for me after graduation, I wanted to go to law school, but I took a break. And when I took that break, I was interning at the public defender's office, and then I worked for the DA's office in enforcing child support payments.
Okay.
Met my husband, got married, and then I had my kids right away. And unfortunately, things got kind of put on hold
Yeah.
during that time. And then once Trump got elected into office, my friends and I noticed that the country was divided so much along racial lines, socioeconomic lines, political lines. And we wanted to, instead of sit there and lament about what was happening, we felt like we wanted to be a little bit more proactive and do something about it. And
Right.
that's when we co-founded Community SJP, whose mission is to unite communities through service. So we bring people together for the greater good. So every month we have an event. We have either a meal making event, or we have a blanket event, care package event. Right now, our next event is on August 24th. We're having a school supply drive. So we put supplies, school supplies, we give them backpacks and school supplies to underprivileged kids. We have migrant workers that come to pick blueberries in Hamilton. So we have a migrant worker care package drive. So it's just wherever there is a need, we try to fill
Yeah.
that gap. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a subdivision of that Cake for Kids program that
Oh
you
yeah, so that was
started.
something, yeah,
Yeah.
that was something I was doing in the past. Unfortunately, we're not doing that anymore, but I had a friend in San Francisco who was doing that. And basically what I would do is provide cakes for kids in foster care or in group homes, because a lot of them did not
Oh,
have anybody celebrating their birthdays. So I would do that. But unfortunately, what happened, the reason we had to stop it was because by the time some of these kids' birthdays came around, they were moved to another home, and
um,
it just became difficult to keep track of
of
all of that. So
where
we were doing it for quite a while, and then we stopped. And then in lieu of that, what we did is we were bringing cupcakes to schools in Camden to celebrate birthdays of kids. So
okay,
during that month, we would bring cupcakes to celebrate all of like the January birthdays and stuff.
okay.
So
Yeah, I can't
it's trying
imagine
to
what
do
a
something
joy.
positive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be for kids, who, like you said, nobody's celebrating their birthdays, nobody's remembering
Yeah.
the day, yeah, they were born, and I'm sure it brought such a joy to them.
Mhm.
So, coming back to your political career, you're a first Muslim, not only a female, but also a first Muslim mayor of Mount
Mhm.
Laurel. So, what are your goals for the Muslim community in Mount Laurel, in particular,
Yeah.
and more in general?
So, um, actually, the surrounding towns in South Jersey within the last year have all created an organization, a Muslim organization. So we
Hmm.
now have our Mount Laurel Muslims organization, and with them, I planned our first Ramadan event in Mount Laurel. So for the first time ever, we had an event celebrating Ramadan. So I had a Nasheed singer come from think it was from Central or North Jersey. He
Okay.
came from there. I had the imam come to talk about the significance of Ramadan. We had local elected officials come to talk about it. So it was very special because that's something that has never been done before.
Yeah.
Like this was a township sponsored event. We had food. We had Arabic food that we provided to everybody. We had a Mehndi artist. We had trying to remember what else did we have. I think we face painting too. So it was a wonderful community event. In fact, it became so popular at one point. We had so many people coming that we had to limit it to people only in Mount Laurel because we had such a big response and everybody was so excited about coming to the event. So that was amazing for me because that was trailblazing.
Yeah.
2 weeks prior to that, I was speaking at a school. I read a book to an elementary school, local elementary school. And then, the teacher asked me, "Oh, is there anything else coming up that we can tell the kids about?" I'm like, "Oh, we're having a Ramadan event." And there was this little girl, she's like, I'm Muslim, I'm fasting." Like, so it was very, very exciting to see
Hearing,
that
yeah.
because, these kids, I mean, we have a growing, the demographics in my town are changing. It's mostly white American, but it is changing. But just to see that little girl get excited about her religion, her background, her culture being celebrated was amazing. So
Yeah.
that was one thing I did. And then I've actually had Eid proclamations that were read when I first as soon as I got inaugurated as mayor, sworn in as mayor. One of the first things I did was have a proclamation recognizing Muslim Heritage Month. And I read that proclamation. And after that, I had people come up to me and say, "Wow, I didn't know Muslims fought in the Revolutionary War. I didn't know Muslims fought in the Civil War." I'm like, yes, Muslims have been a part of the fabric of our nation since the beginning. And these are things that people don't know. So
Never
me
highlighted.
being in this position is like letting people know about these things, not only letting people know about Islam, but also about my culture and my background. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't here. So I'm a proud Muslim, I'm a proud Pakistani, proud South Asian, and I'm not afraid to share that part of me with people.
That's amazing. Like you said, it's trailblazing. So now your term is about to end. Are you planning on running for the mayorship again?
I am, so this is a campaign year for me. I'm excited, like I explained some of the things that I did, for, bringing dispelling stereotypes about Muslims by having the Ramadan event, having
Right.
proclamations. But beyond that, I had our first 4th of July event in Mount Laurel. We've never had one before. And we combined that with First Responders Night. And during that event, we had 15,000 people show up from
Wow.
local
Great
surrounding
attendance.
towns.
Yeah.
And one of the initiatives I had at that event was to honor Mount Laurel citizens. So we honored people who became citizens in Mount Laurel. We provide them with gift baskets. So just, keeping the balance with everything,
Yeah.
like doing positive things, both in light of who I am and my background, but also for the
Yeah.
community as a whole.
Like you mentioned
So
in the beginning that, creating that inclusive environment because you're in
yes,
a
yeah.
whole township. So you're creating that environment of diversity, of inclusiveness by including, and I'm very surprised that you never had a 4th of July event and
Never. It was the first time ever. And it went so well, alhamdulillah. Like it was such a great event that next year we're expecting a lot more people to come
yeah.
because the show was amazing and got a lot of positive feedback. So that was one of my highlights of my term. And now I'm running again. So I'm campaigning right now, fundraising right now. I'll be on the ballot in November. And inshallah, if I get elected, I'll have another 4 years to do more for my community and make some
Yeah.
more positive changes without having like we've had a 0% tax increase since I've been in this position. So that's been really,
I'm sure people
really
love
good.
that. Yes.
Yeah, they
That
are. So
that alone should get you to the next year.
we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah.
So
So the current political climate, now we have a woman of color on as a presidential nominee. How does that impact your running for mayorship again? Does that have any bearing on how the election would go for you?
So I would like to think not.
Okay.
So when I ran in 2020, I had initiatives that we had initiatives that we put forth, things that we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we accomplished all of that. We wanted more communication with our residents, because prior to that, our residents didn't really know what was going on. So we hired a communications director. We have a quarterly newsletter that goes out to all the residents that tells them about events that are coming up, about local businesses that are opening. So I personally, in an ideal world, would like people to look at the things that I've done and not look at my outward appearance,
Right.
and look at
That's
the
the way it should
positives
be.
that I've done and the changes that I've made. I mean, ideally, we're in 2024. The way somebody looks shouldn't really
No.
determine anything. It should be their credentials and what they've accomplished and what they have done. And that's what I hope people will see. I mean, again, I'm being idealistic, because ultimately, people do see me first by the way that I look. Like when I walk into a room, people don't assume that I'm the mayor. They're actually shocked, because in their mind, they're thinking of the mayor as being a white guy, or like,
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
mid-aged white
yeah.
guy, not some Asian girl. So, I mean, obviously it's going to take time for things to change and to normalize, but this is the stepping stone, like I said earlier, for it to get normalized, that somebody who looks like me can be mayor, and it's not just a white person or a white man that is that somebody who can be mayor. So
Need to get over the stereotyping.
yeah.
So, on a lighter note, it also, my understanding there is that you're also a school teacher. How
I
did
teach
you
first
all the
grade.
things that you have been doing?
You know what? I think teaching is probably the best thing ever. There's no job in the world where you come in and you're told how much you're loved, and, given hugs all day long. And I mean, it's not an easy job, but it's
Oh my
probably one
God,
of the
no.
best jobs in the world. I love it. I love when they come to me in the fall, they're still kind of learning to read, they're kind of learning to write, and by the end of the year, just to see how much they grow is such an amazing experience. So, I mean, I love it. It's not easy, but
I would
I
say
love
that
it.
you must have a patience of a saint, because first graders,
I
I'm
don't
sure they're
know.
really
My
testing.
kids, I mean, I'm not as patient with my kids as much as I am with my students.
I
Like
guess.
with my boys, I'm not as much, but with my students, I'm very, very patient. Yeah, you have to. They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. With the first
I mean,
graders.
it just makes me so happy. Like I love going to work every day. Um, it just makes me forget about everything else that's going on in the world. And I work in a very nice school. It's a friend's school, so it's a great environment, and it just is an escape from outside. And I feel like being a teacher is when you really can impact young minds
Yeah.
on being inclusive, on being empathetic and
Mhm.
being sympathetic.
Yeah.
Like these are things that values that I can embed in them when they're younger. Like, we teach them about Ramadan. I read books about Ramadan. My assistant teacher wore hijab. So we talked about hijab, and I had some first graders they had handkerchiefs and they were putting hijabs on. And it was just very cute, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the inclusivity. So when they get older and they see a Muslim person, they're not gonna think of them as a terrorist, or, like they'll remember that
Yeah.
what Muslims are, what Islam is about. So, or on the other hand, teach them about the Jewish culture and what Judaism is about, and how, and even in Judaism, you give, it's called sadaqah. It's like sadaqah. So every culture is big on charity and, like giving back and being a good person. That's what most religions teach you. So, yeah.
And you're right, kids learn the most in those years. And then I think
Mhm.
they learn the most from their teachers as opposed to their own house.
Yeah,
They spend the most time with their
they
teacher, and
do.
they look up to
They're
teachers. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're with when you send your kids to school, your kids are in school for like over 6, 7 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that's where they're being influenced the most. When they come home, they're just going to sleep.
I
So
know.
yeah.
It's so funny. The other day, one of my friends whose kid is first grader, and he came
Mhm.
home and she was trying to tell him to do something, and he's like, "I only listen to my teacher." It was so funny.
It is. I mean, the parents tell me that all the time. I have parents tell me, "Can you please tell her to do this for
Yeah.
me?" I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Yeah, they hold you to a certain standard, and then when they get to middle school, it's the opposite. So that's why I could never teach middle school. Elementary is where I'm at because
But you're laying a strong foundation for them. Then that's really,
I
really
hope
important.
so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so.
Fozia, it was such a pleasure talking to you. And
Likewise.
I hope you can continue and on your journey and you get elected for another 4 years. You're doing such a great job for your community and the Muslim community and introducing that environment of diversity and inclusiveness in your area. It's a pleasure to watch, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Amna. It truly was a pleasure to talk to you and let you know a little bit more about me and my platform and what I'm doing. So.
Thank you.